Hey friends, David Hutchins here of Storytelling Leader. And I have a tip for you today. This is one of my favorite tips for improving story impact. And I swear that if 90% of the leaders I hear tell stories, if they would do this different thing, it would greatly improve the stories they tell. And so here's the tip. There's actually two parts to this tip. You may have heard me talk about this before, that when we tell a story, we want to get that story started as close to that moment of challenge as possible, right? That moment of conflict is the interesting part of the story. That's where people lean in. So we want to push that conflict all the way up to the very first sentence of the story if we can. So I've talked about this before. It's a really powerful thing to do, but it creates a challenge when we do this because now what are we supposed to do with all of this stuff that we've removed from the beginning of the story? That's context, that's stage setting. We need that. If we start at the conflict, where does all of that go? And so here's the second powerful part of this tip. And I do this all of the time, and I don't hear leaders doing this. And so here's the idea. You know how when you watch a Pixar movie or maybe a DreamWorks animated movie, you know how a lot of times it'll start with, the cute, fuzzy animated characters. The movie will start with them in the middle of a chase sequence. Just bam, we're right in the middle of the action as the movie opens, right? And then often they'll freeze the frame and they'll zoom in on the protagonist. Sometimes there's like a needle scratch, and they'll say something like, "You're probably wondering how I got in this mess," right? It's a trope. It's a cliche at this point. But there's a reason why movies do this. It's because it's really effective. And so we tell the story by starting in the conflict, and then we kind of zoom back, and then we go back in time and say, let me show you how I got into this mess. I did this just the other day with a post on LinkedIn. It looked like this. So if you look at this post, look at the very first sentence. The German scientist said to me, "What the hell just happened back there?" That's the first sentence of my post. And that's the conflict. And so as the reader, you're looking at this going, that's weird. That's interesting. It doesn't sound good. I wonder what that's all about. Right? So I've put you right in the middle of the conflict, and now I need to go back in time. This is the needle scratch. You're probably wondering how I got in this mess. I don't use those words, but it's that spirit. Go back in time. So the German scientist said to me, "What the hell just happened here?" So this was back in Munich, and we had just spent the day telling stories together, right? So I've started in the conflict, and then I go back and provide the context. When we tell stories, this is a really natural thing to do. People don't get lost. It's actually more engaging. And so again, a lot of leaders that I hear tell their stories will start with 2 minutes of context. Back when we started this project, this was, responding to a need of our client in Chicago, right? They'll tell this big preamble. No, don't start there. Start with the problem and then go back in time. Let me tell you how we got there. It'll make your story much more impactful. That's the tip today. Let me know what you think about that. Join me in the comments below.